What's up, Flannelers? It is week 16. We're here to break down Monday Night Football, San Francisco 49ers at Indianapolis Colts. Old man Rivers, 44 years old, starting at quarterback for the Colts. This should be an interesting game. Fun one to break down, honestly, I think, in kind of a lot of ways. Kind of a unique slate. Adam, how do you feel about this slate?
Not great. I think it's interesting. Like it's interesting because like there's obviously differences in how you have to project it compared to like most other slates. So there is like nuance in that, and you can come up with different ways to do it. I was actually pretty happy. I spent some time on it this morning, and I was pretty happy. I think with how things came out on the Indianapolis side. But like on the Niners side, there's some stuff up in the air too with Pearsall back out. So I think it's interesting in that regard. I don't expect it to be particularly fun to watch the game or to play the slate, but I do think it's kind of an interesting one.
When you say that you like how things shook out on the Indianapolis side, are you talking about Michael Pittman specifically? Because you have him projected finally below 9.5 DraftKings fantasy points, and you're sweating. Is it exactly 9.5 that he needs to beat you to keep you from advancing DraftKings Millie Maker in best ball?
I think it's like 9.56.
Okay.
Flex has 9.2, and I'm up by 0.36. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. that is quite the sweat.
Yeah.
Did you have any other? How else did best ball go for you?
It's okay. So I had a BBM team that was dead by Thursday. I had two teams in the puppy using BBMDB. One is 70% and one's 50%, but they're correlated. They both have McCaffrey. One also has Jennings. So I'll probably either get 2 or 0 in that. And then I think like truly 50% in the DraftKings Millie where I'm fading Pittman.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Not the best week for me, but not the worst. I actually, frankly, I should be very happy with how this week went. Although on Underdog, I kind of did not do that well. Kind of sucked. Best Ball Mania, I don't have a chance to advance either team. I actually, if my teams were reversed in their pods, I would be winning one of them right now, and it would be advancing. Probably still going to lose because it's also fading, I don't know, 11 from Pittman or something, and there's probably McCaffrey teams. Like it would be up by like 0.3 points, but it would like currently be winning and have a chance to advance in Best Ball Mania. But my better team had 5 Puka teams in the pod.
Yeah.
My worst team had just 1 Puka team in the pod, and so that's not working out. But as I told you, I am I think a lock at this point, or virtually a lock, to advance one team to the DraftKings Best Ball, the $20 Millie Maker final, and then probably a 90%, at least 90%, because I'm fading 20, like almost 26 from Pittman. It would take to beat me in the second one. So overall, like pretty good, even though like overall my advance rate for teams in the semis not where it should be. 2 in the best ball in the Millie Maker is like ideal. Like so getting them in the contest where I'd most like to have them.
Yeah, that's solid. That's the position I thought I was going to be in with Pittman. Like going into last night, I was up by 34 points, and the other guy had May, Diggs, Henry, but like he obviously had players at those positions. I'm like, all right, as long as they don't score like 60 to 70, then I'll probably be in a position where like I'm fading 20 to 30 from Pittman. And then they just combined for 70 fucking points.
Yeah. Yes, they did. So I guess I'm pretty happy with how things go, but it all comes down to this Pittman. Like if I only advance one of the two to the DraftKings final, I will be kind of devastated at this point because I should win this one. It would take Pittman having his best game of the year to beat me. He has Phillip Rivers throwing the ball, and yet I'm so nervous about it because like that's just how it always goes. Like of course he has his best game of the season. I'm already anticipating it. All right. Let's move on and let us know how you guys are doing in best ball. I'm sure others have some best ball sweats going on. Anybody make the BBM finals, the DraftKings Millie Maker finals, anything else you care about, let us know. But we will go in and talk about DFS, starting with the quarterbacks. This is a funny one. So we have Brock Purdy, 10,400 projected for 52% flex ownership, 17% captain ownership. I'm actually under the field overall on Purdy, 52% in the flex, right with the field, and then 6% at captain. And then we have Phillip Rivers, who is 8,800 projected for just 13% flex ownership, 3% captain ownership. I'm getting to 16% flex, 1% captain. So just very slightly over the field on Phillip Rivers, even at 8,800, getting no ownership. Is this what you're getting? Is this how you're planning on playing this slate?
Yeah, it's pretty similar for me too. I have like 22% at flex. I have 1% at captain. I obviously don't really want Phillip Rivers, but he is only 8,800. And then the other thing too is, and obviously we talk about this a lot, but with it being a single game slate, like the fact that Rivers is so unappealing also makes one of the entire teams more or less, like at least less appealing compared to like their baseline level of appeal. So he does still show up. Like you're not expecting anything from him. He's not gonna run. He's gonna throw a bunch of short passes. He's gonna run a bunch of clock and make the game have fewer possessions overall, most likely. But again, that translates to everything. I mean, in that case, like when you're talking about him running play clock and limiting the number of plays in the game, that even translates to the San Francisco side and lowers their projections a little bit. So yeah, he's a quarterback. He's about as low a projected quarterback as you're ever going to get, but he's still like in the projections that came out of the sim I ran before the show. He still came in with like the 7th highest projection on the slate, behind skill players and Purdy.
I mean, this is the 10th best matchup for quarterbacks in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed over the past 5 weeks. So it is a fantastic matchup for Phillip Rivers. I mean, I think at this level of ownership, I'm going to have a lot of interest. If he really does come in at 13% ownership, I think, like I understand that it's gross. I get 16% total ownership, but like whenever you get a quarterback this low, I'm inclined to play them anyway and just be like, it's last game they had their lowest pass rate over expectation of the entire season. So like, yeah, it appears like, and this is kind of what you'd expect. Phillip Rivers came in and they just immediately stopped throwing the ball like at all. Negative 11.4 pass rate over expectation in week 15 with Phillip Rivers. At the same time, like that was his first game in the NFL after I think a 5-year retirement. It could be that he just needs to get acclimated with the team to some extent, and like certain game scripts, they might throw it a little bit more. I don't know. Like and he did throw it 27 times, which is like, it's not a lot, but it's also not nothing. Could just randomly get a couple touchdowns. So I think that I'll probably end up significantly overweight if he comes in at 16%, like at least double the field, I would think.
So I can make a case either way. Like I agree with you. Obviously, there could just be like we know he already knows the offense, and we know that he clearly has physical limitations. It's not like he was 1 week. He needed 1 week to get back to 2006 Phillip Rivers. But the bull case, like you said, would just be like he's at least more familiar with his actual player, like receivers now. He already knew the offense. Now he's got a little bit more working with the receivers. Maybe he'll be a little better. The bear case is, or actually another positive is San Francisco. You mentioned them being a good matchup for opposing quarterbacks. They've also been the team that kind of just like lets you dump it down and accumulate a lot of fantasy production that way, which is one of the things that's scaring the shit out of me fading Pittman.
Yeah.
Obviously Phillip Rivers is willing to do that, but also the Colts in general, outside of Alec Pierce, like nobody has a high ADOT on this team. Pittman's like 8, Downs I think is like 6 or 7, Warren is like 5, Taylor is negative, I think. So like there's a decent chance the Niners just let the Colts kind of do what they want to, or all they can do, and that it's not pretty, but you just kind of get like 10, 11, 12 fantasy points from Phillip Rivers, which could potentially be enough. The negative, or like the downside risk case here, is the Colts ran 57 plays last week. And like you said, threw the ball 27 times. That was a game where it actually went relatively well. They didn't like get backed up. He didn't, turn the ball over a bunch or anything like that. This is a team that, because of like how slow they're going to play and everything like that, they're live to have one of those games where like they run 40 plays and are just absolutely cooked across the board. Like that is, I think last week in terms of like plays run and everything is probably about as good as you can expect from the Colts. I don't anticipate. I mean, I guess you could argue, like Phillip Rivers had said in that radio appearance, like you could argue maybe there's a game where they run, but even then they're probably not going to run like 70 plays. They might have the ball for 40 minutes, but they're going to run like 58 plays. So that is a concern where if like in the games where like they get backed up and aren't able to like convert third downs and everything, like you just could have one of those like Raiders type games where they just, run 12 plays in the first half.
Like I 100% agree that is well within the like probably the likeliest outcome, or like a fairly likely outcome that they just don't run that many plays and that they're just kind of like doing short yardage stuff. But isn't that kind of what the ownership is expecting? Like if only 16% of the field is playing an $8,800 starting quarterback, like that people are kind of making the assumption that it's going to be like they just don't really score and it's dink and dunk and it's kind of gross. And like that can be true. And yet, one of those dump offs to Jonathan Taylor is a 50-yard receiving touchdown. He was targeted 4 times. Like there are ways for like Phillip Rivers doesn't necessarily need to be good. The offense doesn't need to be good for just like a couple random plays to work out in their favor. And the quarterback is the most likely to benefit from those kind of broken plays. So I like it from that perspective, I guess.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, again, like the projections across the industry, Run the Sims included, and ownership are going to have that, take that into account. Like the passing yard prop on DraftKings for Phillip Rivers last I looked was like 160. We haven't projected for 152 yards. Like everybody's going to play it like that's like the median. That's what people are expecting.
It is the likely outcome. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. And I mean, I guess I would say, I do think that there's like, if you think about like Phillip Rivers distribution, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that it's not necessarily like a normal distribution where like 152 is his median, but like sometimes he throws for 350. Like, I don't know how the hell he throws for 350.
Yeah.
I do know how he throws for 61.
Yeah, right. No, I agree with you there. So like, again, like you wouldn't play him on a main slate, but like on a showdown slate where like you don't need 351, like if he throws for 189 and 2 touchdowns, like that could very well be enough. He's not going to run it all. I can feel pretty confident in that.
Right. Well, and the thing is, like, he is correlated with the entire slate, obviously more so with his team. But like, if he plays unbelievably bad, and obviously if he plays unbelievably bad, then you're talking about, just like a Niners onslaught with, I don't know, Colts defense or kicker or something like that. But like, if he plays relatively poorly, let's say, and somewhere around his median or even a little bit worse, you're still pulling down the projection for like most of his teammates. The exception being like, with it being full PPR, he could throw for 80 yards, and if he's peppering, let's say Tyler Warren,
let's say Michael Pittman. Let's try Michael Pittman.
We're not
maybe 21 receptions for Michael Pittman.
I'm already pre-tilting 9 catches for like 15 yards for Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
Like there is obviously that path to like, oh yeah, somebody caught 8 passes at 3 yards a pop and got like 12 fantasy points. But like to your point, in the projection I ran before the show, Phillip Rivers came out at 10.4 fantasy points. He ended up in 22% of my lineups.
Right. So you're well over the field there.
Right. Which again, maybe that ownership comes up a little bit, but
yeah. This is why I think the slate is so interesting, because I'm like Pittman, like, I mean, not Pittman. Rivers, like, yeah, obviously he's not likely to score that many points, but also like, just like if you have him in your lineup, it doesn't take that much for Phillip Rivers to score enough that you want him on the showdown slate. Like it's unlikely that he throws for 4 touchdowns, but like that could happen. I don't know. I think he is at 16% ownership. I like him as a play.
Yeah, and I think that ownership number might come up a little bit. I do think it's interesting. Like, so I just sorted by optimal rate at Flex, and I mentioned he's the 7th highest projected player that came out of the sim. But in terms of optimal rate, he is buried. Because obviously that's factoring in salary and correlations and all of that as well. So like he is buried in terms of optimal rate. So I do think that makes him pretty ownership elastic. Going back to econ, I think that I
don't even know what that means. Ownership elastic.
As ownership moves a little bit, my interest in Phillip Rivers changes a lot.
Okay, yeah.
Inelastic would mean that I don't really care what ownership is.
Okay,
as long as I'm getting that right in my head.
Isn't that ownership agnostic? Isn't that just what
ownership agnostic would be inelastic?
Okay.
Ownership agnostic. I mean, you don't care what the ownership is. You just like
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I was trying to come up with
inelastic. I get it now. Okay.
Yeah. I needed the opposite of that. Because he's not optimal a lot. He's optimal like 17% of the time. So if Phillip Rivers projected ownership ends up actually coming in at 18, 19, 20%, which isn't that far off from the 13 he's projected for right now, then pretty quickly I go from like, oh, I think he's going on their own to like, oh, I want no real part of this.
I think for me, it would take more than 20% for me to start being like, I don't really like this that much. I think it would have to be like 30% for me to suddenly be like, this is a bad play. I should just full fade him. I think if he comes in at 20%, I think I'm still like, I'd like to be probably over the field at 20%. If he comes in at 16%, then I have a lot of interest in being at like 25, 30 or something. I don't know. It's a tough one. This is definitely one of the tougher decision points, but it's like, it's fun in the sense of like, there's no guessing at like usage. Like, I feel like sometimes a lot of these decisions, like, I think this guy could run 80% of the routes and it could be 30%. And like, you're going to know pretty quickly if you were wrong. The fun thing about Philip Rivers is like, if I have him in my lineup, he's got the whole game to potentially pay it off. But I like him generally at 16% ownership. I do agree with you that there is a point that I guess it's not that much higher than 16% that I start thinking this might look bad. But for me, I think it's a little higher than you, like maybe closer to like 30%. I'm like, that would be kind of bad ownership maybe.
Yeah, I assume if he gets to like 20, 21, 22, I would end up coming in somewhere like 13 to 15. If he got to 30, I assume I'm playing like 5.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Obviously Philip Rivers, you're stacking him regardless of where you have him in your lineup. He's just not gonna put up a big score without throwing quite a bit to receivers who will outscore him. If you have him in the captain spot, I will probably want to have him multi-stacked, that you can include Jonathan Taylor in that equation. Brock Purdy looks great though. I mean, I am coming in under the field right now at 52% flex, 17% captain. Again, I'm getting to 52 and 6. Are you also under the field on Brock Purdy overall?
I am, even at flex, I'm under at captain, where right now he's projected for 17%. We only have him being optimal at captain about 10% of the time. So either that ownership number comes down a bit, or I just probably don't play as much Brock Purdy at captain. Obviously, he does project well. He clearly projects as the best quarterback play. Third highest projection on the slate right now behind McCaffrey and Taylor. And it's kind of like tiered, where you have like tier 1 in terms of projection, you have McCaffrey, Taylor. Then you have Purdy, like kind of a few points behind them, but a few points ahead of anybody else. And then you get to like, you kind of have then like George Kittle in a tier by himself. And then you get to like tier 4, where it's, Jennings, Warren, Rivers, kickers, all that stuff, Pittman. So it's kind of interesting in that regard. But I do think that, at least right now, he looks more interesting to me at flex than at captain.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the case for me also. No, one more point on Rivers, just I'm thinking about, because it is fascinating. I mean, the last week's game was really close, and like pass rate over expectation was really low. So like you know that in a neutral game script they want to run the ball, but like what if they get behind on the Niners? Like maybe they do start chucking it. Like last week he was not forced to chuck it at all because they were just in a really close game, and like it's their preference to keep it on the ground. But if the Niners get up by 2 touchdowns in the second half, now I understand, like if that happens, then it's like, well, the Niners have scored a lot of points, so then like but like, I don't know. There are game scripts where he's gonna have to throw the ball more.
I kind of just think they eat it. Like
I expect it.
I mean, there's games all the time when you have backup quarterbacks where it's just like, there's nothing we can do. Like, okay, our defense gave up 21 points real quick. Like, yeah, obviously we're going to try and throw it more, but physically he can't get the ball down the field. And like you see that with backup quarterbacks all the time that aren't 44 years old. And, so it's just like, yeah, okay, maybe our pass rate increases, but like we can only run plays that are 8 yards down the field or less. The Niners can just sit on that. Now, where it gets interesting, and again, scary for Pittman, is like, how aggressively do the Niners play? Are they jumping these short routes, or are they just saying, okay, get your 4 yards, tackle, get your 4 yards, tackle, and like suddenly Philip Rivers just, they're down 3 touchdowns, but he drives it down the field on 13 plays and scores a meaningless touchdown at the end. And, the Colts actually like do something functional. So, but like to your point, even if they're down, I don't know what they can do. Like, yeah, they can throw it more frequently, but I don't think plays exist where they open up the playbook and like Philip Rivers is taking deep shots down the field.
What I'm hearing here is a lot of ageism. Like you just like don't believe in the 44-year-old quarterback being able to chuck it 30 yards. No, I think Philip Rivers is gonna be able to throw it 30 yards down the field to Josh Downs. Hopefully not Michael Pittman, since I am also fading Michael Pittman as much as I want to make fun of you, and I also need Michael Pittman to have a bad game. So hopefully it's Josh Downs. Yeah, but I'm gonna bet on the old man. I'm gonna bet on the old man being able to throw for 2 touchdowns and 189 yards, and that being enough for Philip Rivers. So I think I'm gonna be overweight here. That's where I'm coming down in this, I think.
The flip side to this too, like, and this is where, I mean, Showdown, people always talk about like, putting Taylor in a lineup that tells a story in Showdown or whatever. And my counter is kind of like, in a 1-game slate, anything can make sense. Like you just made this whole argument for like, why maybe Phillip Rivers has to throw more this week than, last week. But like you already mentioned it, like in that situation that it would mean the Niners are scoring points. But also if we just say, let's say Phillip Rivers somehow like is solid and efficient, then the Niners probably have to throw the ball more to like not keep up necessarily, but the Niners have more incentive to play aggressively on the offensive end and score fantasy points. And so then you're still potentially creating a situation where the optimal lineup is like Niners pass catchers plus McCaffrey plus Taylor plus one of the Colts pass catchers.
I think the toughest part for the Phillip Rivers play to work out is just like how condensed both offenses are kind of, but especially the Niners. It's like, it's probably going to be like, it's tough to outscore Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings. Like they just have like a few players that get all the points where it's like, he probably, like you said, like he probably does need a fair number of points to actually make the winning lineup. So yeah, it is a game where it's like, yeah, it's probably not going to be enough to get 12 in this particular game, because it's just like there are so many players you're competing with that are cheaper or around the same price and that are going to score a lot of fantasy points. But you do have, McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor are both expensive. So I don't know. I think I will come in overweight on Phillip Rivers, and that's what the sims are giving me right now. But like you said, it's very much going to be dependent on how ownership shakes out. Like if the ownership comes up a little bit, it's going to be less appealing. At 16%, I have a ton of interest. But I think we can move on probably from quarterbacks. Do you have any other notes on the quarterbacks?
No, just people in their 40s are incompetent.
People in their 40s know how to run an NFL offense. You see these kids coming in that can't do shit, and then all these teams have to turn to their older guys. Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, he's like 43 also, I think.
No way.
No, he's not even close to
43. He's like
35. That's a joke.
Yeah, Joe Flacco's like 40.
To be clear. Is he really? Yeah. I mean, look at this. All these older quarterbacks coming in looking competent. So saying people in their 40s are incompetent is just like clearly untrue, because it's the teams have to bring in the 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks for their
Flacco might be like 40. Flacco was drafted my senior year of high school. Phillip Rivers was drafted either when I was in 8th grade or my freshman year of high school.
Yeah. Special VTOP says, I hear you two never lose money because you are max entry bros. Any truth to this? Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Yeah, yep. I never lose money. Also, the only thing that I max enter, by the way, is the mini max, which is you can max enter it for $75. So you are all, if you have $75, you can all max enter the contest that I max enter.
How rich?
Yeah, I know, right? All right. Moving on to running backs. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, kind of in their own tier on this. Like Christian McCaffrey, 11,800 projected for 46% flex ownership, 26% captain ownership. I'm getting to 54% in the flex and 24% at captain. So a little bit over the field in the flex, slightly under the field at captain on Christian McCaffrey. That looked great to me. Getting to a lot of McCaffrey. Clearly one of the best players maybe the best player in fantasy. What are you doing with Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, I'm playing a lot. I have 51 at flex. I have 23 at captain, more or less in line with how ownership's projected right now. We have him 48% to be optimal at flex, 21% at captain. You did get Buckner back from IR, which isn't ideal, but it's not like McCaffrey has been getting there this season on tons of efficiency anyway, although he has been better with Kittle back the block. But you're just getting, a big workload. Now, it is worth mentioning that they have pretty consistently, and part of this, I think, has been somewhat game script. Haven't been in a lot of competitive games lately. But his rushing market share the last 5 or 6 weeks has been down compared to his overall season average. You've seen Brian Robinson living in that like 25 to 30% range, as opposed to there were a couple games where Robinson just like didn't do anything. But McCaffrey's still clearly the workhorse running back. He's getting targeted a ton, 0.24 targets per route run in the games that he's played with Brock Purdy this season. Has a receiving yards prop of, I think, somewhere around like 40, 45 yards, something like that. So like, obviously he's very, very good. Yeah.
I mean, he, I think, has still the best role in fantasy. We've seen a couple other running backs kind of catch up to him recently with expanding roles, including Jonathan Taylor in the most recent game. But McCaffrey's workload just kind of insane. I don't know if it's held true, but like for much of the year, it was like just looking at his receiving work, he would be a wide receiver 1, like a top 12 fantasy wide receiver, not even counting his rushing work, which is pretty insane. Over the past 3 games, 66 rushing attempts, 22 rushing attempts per game for Christian McCaffrey. Actually, only 4 targets per game in the most recent 3. that's kind of interesting. But 73.5% route participation, great workload. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on Christian McCaffrey. It is a bottom 10 matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed over the past 5 games. Like you said, they get DeForest Buckner back, so it's even tougher. But matchup is not really that important for Christian McCaffrey, and this isn't one that I think of as being like a truly terrible matchup. It's just like a kind of negative matchup. Jonathan Taylor, 11,000 projected for 41% flex, 21% captain ownership. I'm getting to 51% flex, 36% captain exposure to Jonathan Taylor. As noted, the role last week in Phillip Rivers' first game, pretty fantastic for Jonathan Taylor. Are you also getting a lot over the field?
Yeah, I think he projects very, very similarly to McCaffrey. He's $800 less. And right now he's projected for less ownership. Still getting a lot, but 41% at flex compared to 46% for McCaffrey, 21 at captain compared to 26 for McCaffrey. Actually have him with a slightly higher optimal captain rate at 25% compared to 21 for McCaffrey. And then at flex, very similar, 45% chance of being optimal. So I have identical amounts, 51% at flex. I actually have a bit more Taylor at captain than McCaffrey, 34% Taylor compared to 23% McCaffrey. So clearly prioritizing both of them, but you do get the $800 in savings going to Taylor. And, as you alluded to, it was expected. And then we saw it. Like, Jonathan Taylor's had a much bigger passing game role this year than in previous years, just in terms of being on the field, running routes, catching passes, etc. But he still hasn't been like a high target per route run guy for the season. Last week in game 1 with Phillip Rivers, 0.29, I believe, targets per route run. And the actual number is going to vary, but it makes all the sense in the world that Jonathan Taylor is just going to get more targets per route than he would when Daniel Jones was the quarterback.
Yeah, four targets in that game last week. We'll take that for Jonathan Taylor, plus 25 carries. I mean, just insane workload for Jonathan Taylor last week. Also a nice matchup here with San Francisco. Is a top 10 matchup in terms of schedule adjusted over the past 5 weeks. Can't click off this. There we go. So yeah, everything looks great for Jonathan Taylor. I think everybody knows to play Taylor and McCaffrey. I think the question a lot of people ask is like, who do you prefer? Do you have a clear preference between Taylor and McCaffrey?
Slight edge on the cheaper one, Taylor.
Yeah, I think same for me. And that's kind of what the Sims are giving us. Cheaper and also just like more likely to have. I guess that's not even true. I was going to say likely to have the better workload, but it's Christian McCaffrey on the other side, so I can't even really say that.
Taylor absolutely projects to have like a higher percentage of his team's share of touches and opportunities, or at least on the rushing side. Like McCaffrey obviously projects for more targets, but Taylor still Taylor clear. Like McCaffrey, you run the risk of like he does actually have like functional teammates. You could just have a Niners game where Kittle and the passing game does well minus McCaffrey or whatever. Taylor has the risk of like there's like clearly he's option number 1, 2, and 3 in their game plan, but like if you just get that game where the Colts are completely inept and score 3 points, it's bad for everybody. But ownership also between them plays a big role. Like right now, ownership's projected very similarly. They project very similarly. I'm going to just lean towards the cheaper one. Ownership doesn't have to move that much to where, Taylor's getting a bit more than McCaffrey. And I'm just going to say like, okay, yeah, I'll still play plenty of Taylor, but like now I prefer McCaffrey. So ownership, certainly a key point in that question too.
Definitely. Yeah. And then you have the backup running backs, Amir Abdullah, 2,400 projected for 10% flex ownership. I'm getting to 26%, so well over the field on Amir Abdullah. Looking at the workload in the first game with Phillip Rivers, only ran 6 routes and was targeted 5 times on those 6 routes. Also had 4 carries in that game. Not a bad role, and it could expand if they need to throw more. How much interest do you have in Amir Abdullah?
I have 20% right now. And you mentioned it. He's not going to be on the field a lot, but it certainly seems like when he is on the field, he's going to have a role. We're expecting Phillip Rivers to very heavily target his running backs. I think it's like a more extreme, potentially, version of what we've seen with Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Like, we've talked about it when the Steelers are on a showdown slate, but the targets per route run for Gainwell and Warren are both so much higher this year than you've gotten at previous points in their career because Aaron Rodgers isn't capable of running very frequently. He's more capable than Rivers is, I think. But he's just going to dump it down and check it down to his running backs who are capable pass catchers. You get the same thing here. Abdullah ran like 20% of routes last week. I have him projected for like 15% this week. Taylor ran 64 last week on average. He's been around 70. So he's not going to be out there a lot, and you do run the risk of, if the pass happen, the couple of targets he gets happen to fall incomplete, or he is on the field even less than expected. Like, yeah, he can still give you like a absolute zero, but he's only 2,400. I do think that he'll be targeted at a relatively high rate when he is on the field, and it's not like he's projected for tons of fantasy points here. Having projected for like 1.8 catches or something, and he's showing up 20% of the time.
Also, I'll always the contingent upside argument for backup running backs. If Jonathan Taylor gets hurt, I guess I don't know if they have any other, like if DJ Giddens he's been inactive, I think, most games. So would it have to be Abdullah? Do they have another running back
Goodson,
that they could use? Oh, Goodson, Tyler Goodson. Okay. Which, like, would it be Goodson, you think? I think it would probably be Goodson getting the contingent upside if anything happened to Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, I expect Goodson. I think Goodson's the backup running back.
Okay.
Abdullah's the like third down / backup pass catcher.
And currently, I mean, I'm not getting to any Goodson.
He's projected for 0 stats.
Yeah, zero snaps, 0 anything in the past game, in the most recent game. Yeah, I guess. Well, what did you know Goodson's price tag is? Do you have that open? Let's see.
I do not.
Is he going to show up here? Yes. Oh, he's 200. I mean, I always like to differentiate between like the standalone role and the contingent upside. And like Abdullah is a clearly better play because he has a standalone role. But like Goodson at 200, having the potentially the contingent upside, and it happens to Jonathan Taylor or like blowout run, I don't hate it for 200.
Yeah,
especially
like
because
you'll have to actually like give him a median projection. But like there is that angle.
Yeah. I guess I'll just say that he is in play in a 150 set.
I guess there was a slate like this like 2 years ago where I think I don't remember who it was. There was some random guy where it was like a Patriots third running back or something that I just wanted to do it. But I haven't built it, but I assume you can find the salary, like something like McCaffrey, captain, Purdy, Jennings, Kittle, another Niner, and then Goodson is like your one Colt.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems viable to me. Probably like most often he's going to have 0 opportunities and obviously score you 0 fantasy points. But, there are plenty of scenarios where either a Jonathan Taylor injury, which is, I don't know, 5% chance any given game, or just like blowout run. There are chances for him to get in there and nobody's playing him and he's 200. So I don't totally hate that either. And then on the San Francisco side, we've got Juszczyk and what's his name? Brian Robinson Jr. Brian Robinson is 3,000 projected for 34% flex ownership, 1% captain ownership. I'm getting to 20% flex, 1% captain. I think it makes sense to be under the field. He's 3,000, so fairly priced. But I'm glad to be under the field on Brian Robinson, I think.
Yeah, he's another one. Like, obviously the ownership will matter, but right now you're getting 34% projected to him at flex, only 10% for Abdullah. So I have 17% Robinson, puts me at about half the field. We have him being optimal 24% of the time. It's not that he's like a bad play or unlikely to succeed. He's in the optimal lineup 1 in 4 times roughly. So it is another spot where like ownership dictates a lot on this slate because there is so much just up in the air and volatility and stuff. But yeah, like this is definitely a spot where, at least for me, I'm not saying, I'm half the field on Brian Robinson because I think he's a shitty play and I don't know why people are going to play him. I'm saying like very specifically at 34% ownership, I think that's a little bit too high, but it doesn't need to come down that much for me to be interested because I do think he's likely to have, 6-7 carries, something like that. We've seen him averaging about 27% rushing market share over his last 5 games. Again, part of that has been game dependent where like the Niners just haven't been in. They're not like benching McCaffrey, but like they just haven't been in super competitive games down the stretch, and you're seeing some more Robinson. But he has, very firmly been like the running back 2, as opposed to earlier in the year where it was like, sometimes he plays, sometimes he doesn't. He's very clearly like been in the rotation, and he is only 3K. Does have some touchdown upside and all that.
Yeah, I mean, 8 carries per game over the past 3, has a couple targets in those 3 games. Just 7% route participation in the most recent 3 games. So that's not fantastic. And if you watch these shows a lot, you know that I often recommend backup running backs. Like I usually love the backup running back play, especially when they are like Brian Robinson, where it's like he has a standalone role and then awesome contingent upside. But yeah, it's just because he's at 35% ownership. Usually the backup running backs, like you can get them at 8%, and that's when I really love them at 35%. I think it makes sense to be a little bit under the field on Brian Robinson. Use check 1,400 projected for 12% ownership. I'm getting to 13%, 0.3 at flex. That seems fine to me. Do you have any takes on use check?
No, other than he had like 55% route participation last week. That's obviously not sticky. You're not expecting that week over week, but he has had, he's averaging like 35%, I think. So it's kind of like another version of Amir Abdullah. Like, you're not expecting him to get targeted every single time he runs a route, but he's going to run, more routes than Abdullah. You're just hoping that he catches a pass or two.
Yeah. All right.
12% chance of being optimal, 12% projected ownership. I have 13%.
Yep. Seems about right. All right. We can move on to wide receivers. I think I went over the matchups, right? I think I went over the matchups for both. Yeah. Nice matchup for Jonathan Taylor and the Colts running backs. Tougher matchup for the Niners running backs, but still not like that far off of neutral. All right. We'll move on to wide receivers. I think that the top wide receiver play on the slate is Juwan Jennings. He is 8,000 projected for 28% flex, 6% captain ownership. I'm getting to 25% flex, 5% captain. So slightly under the field on Juwan Jennings right now. I look at those numbers and I think that I would like more of Jennings. I'm slightly surprised that I am under the field on Jennings. Are you also under the field on Jennings?
Yeah, I think this is all ownership driven. If you look at how ownership's being projected right now, it's very, very, very heavily to the Niners, which obviously makes sense. But like 11% projected ownership to Pittman, 7% to Downs compared to 28 to Jennings at flex, 31 to Kendrick Bourne. Jennings is showing up at flex as optimal 28% of the time. I have 22% of him. I have 6% of captain. I just have like these big stands on Colts receivers right now, which I think is a function of the ownership being too low on Colts receivers, which means that on at least some of these Niners receivers, it'll come down some. But Jennings is the top projected guy here. He looks good. You don't have Pearsall. You're expecting him to run, 85, 90% of routes, somewhere in there. Looks very, very good.
Jennings over the past 3 games, 17 targets on 81.4% route participation. As you noted, Ricky Pearsall going to be out for this one. You'd kind of expect the target share to jump up slightly. I guess like from the matchup is, I believe, pretty good on paper. I think it's already pretty good. Yeah, it's like a top 10 or so matchup in terms of schedule adjusted over the past 5 weeks. We have Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward still both out for the Colts. So nice matchup for Juwan Jennings. I guess like the tough thing is also the price tag. So you mentioned the ownership, but also he's 8,000. If you're trying to play Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor and Brock Purdy, suddenly it's a lot tougher to play Juwan Jennings, whereas you can get a price discount on Josh Downs, 5,600. All the Colts receivers are at least a little bit cheaper, so I think that's probably a factor also. Just like it's easier to play the cheaper guys. Anything, and then so we have Ricky Pearsall out, and as you mentioned earlier, like this is where it gets sort of tough to project with Ricky Pearsall out because I'm just going to bring up the route share report. Because we have a period with Pearsall out, but it might not be a clear like mirror of what we're going to see this week. So we had Pearsall out weeks 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In those games, we saw Kendrick Bourne kind of started with the clear lead role, 76%, 81, 75, 78, 75% route participation through week 9, and then down to 59, 11, 6, 31. As Demarcus Robinson kind of has taken on more work. Actually, that's not even true. Not even really more work recently. So it's kind of a mess. What are we doing with the 49ers receivers beyond Juwan Jennings with Ricky Pearsall out? Do you have a favorite between Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, anybody else of these 49ers receivers?
Yeah, so I do think it's pretty up in the air. I thought I was going to have more Kendrick Bourne than I do right now because I think there's a chance that he's on the field kind of more than like the prop market is seemingly expecting. I think his prop receiving yards is like 24, 25. I think we haven't projected for like 33 or something. But he did have a pretty clear role in those games Pearsall was out. If you look at the 4 weeks that Ricky Pearsall missed earlier, actually 4 weeks that Ricky Pearsall missed, George Kittle was active and Juwan Jennings was active. You got 82, 84, 79, and 62% route participation from him. You got 43, 62, 45, and 54 from Robinson. So Robinson was like pretty clearly living in the like 45 to 60 range. And Bourne was living in the, like 65 to 80% range. There's no guarantee that happens again. But like last week also, you had Bourne run 46% of routes. He had run 34% the week before that, even with Pearsall running 94. So he had kind of like seemingly gotten his way back into the rotation anyway after barely being on the field the first 2 games after Pearsall's return. Week 13, he was back to 34%. And then last week, got to 46%. Robinson was at 38. So like, I think he's ahead of Robinson in terms of route participation. Could be wrong, but I'm expecting Robinson to still kind of be in that like, 45 to 60% range. And then Bourne to be in the like 60 to 80% range. So I do like Bourne. It's just at 31% ownership, that's kind of a lot.
Oh, there is also and I just remembered this narrative of Kendrick Bourne with Mac Jones was kind of a thing where it was like they both came over from the Patriots. So it's possible that but like you said, he's been earning more of a role, and this is in games with Purdy. He's been like starting to take on a bigger role than he had in weeks 11 and week 12. I don't have which of these games Brock Purdy has been active. I forget exactly when he came back. But that could have been a factor to some extent of just the familiarity with Mac Jones. They were playing Kendrick Bourne more, but I agree with you. It's just completely up in the air. We have not really, we don't have a great indication of how much each of them is going to run. I think I agree with you though, that because he's been with Purdy in recent weeks and it's been Kendrick Bourne, at least last week, ran more routes, kind of seemed to jump past DeMarcus Robinson. It's interesting. It wouldn't be that surprising to see DeMarcus Robinson take back over as the number 2 receiver. Regardless, though, they're about the same price: 4,400 for Kendrick Bourne, 4,000 for DeMarcus Robinson. I'm under the field on both right now. 31 and 1% projected ownership for Bourne. I'm getting to 10 and 1. DeMarcus Robinson at 4,000 projected as 15% flex ownership. I'm getting to 3. That surprises me a little bit that I'm below that far below on DeMarcus Robinson, where he's only projected for 15% ownership. I might adjust that to get to more of DeMarcus Robinson.
It doesn't have to do with the player. It has to do with the rest of your lineups. It's a combination of the super low ownership that's coming into Downs and Pittman right now.
Yeah.
And then also being over on Abdullah, getting to juice check as cheap pieces. So you don't necessarily need the value with Robinson and Bourne. So it's all tied into that. It doesn't actually have to do, I don't think, with Bourne or Robinson projections. Obviously if you increase them, you'll get more, but I think it's mostly just be very heavily driven by the discrepancy that we're seeing right now in wide receiver ownership, which I don't necessarily think is true. I don't think Josh Downs is going to be 7% owned. I don't think Michael Pittman's only going to be 11% owned. Bourne, has a 20% chance of being optimal at flex, but he's being projected for 31% ownership. Robinson, 11% to be optimal at flex, but he's being projected for 15%. Those guys just start getting kicked out when at the same time you have, Pittman being projected for 11% ownership with a 20% chance of being optimal. It's he's $3,000 more, but that's factored into the optimal rate. You're just going to get to more Pittman than Bourne, for example. Whereas assuming that ownership shifts, you'll get more Bourne and Robinson.
I think this is a good note also from Neil Farley. Says Bourne also plays more outside, so I'm expecting him to be the wide receiver too. Just looking at the past few games where they have run their routes, because we're replacing Pearsall. Pearsall's run 75% of his routes out wide, 25% in the slot. DeMarcus Robinson has run 55% of his routes from the slot, whereas it has been Bourne running more outside. So it would make sense for Bourne to take over more of those Pearsall roles. I think that's a good note also.
Yeah, for the season, Robinson's an outside receiver too. For the season, 61% of Robinson's routes have been outside, but 75% of Bourne's. So I think I agree with the point, and it's one of the reasons that I think it's Bourne kind of stepping up into a bigger role, and Robinson more or less keeping his role with a little bit more, combined with what we saw earlier in the year. But it's not one of the really cut and dry spots. It's not like Mumfield with the Rams where you could look and say okay, there's 4 options to take Devontae Adams' role. One of them runs outside routes and 3 of them just do not. It's not that extreme.
Right. And also the coaches are talking about how much he resembles that player and all that good stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I think that is a good note. But let's see, are we getting to any Sky Moore 1,000? I guess I'm getting to 5% Sky Moore. Jordan Watkins is 800, projected for 8%. Okay, and I'm getting to 14%. So apparently we do have a few other receivers we need to think about here.
I think I was a little high on the projections before the show for like Watkins. I as we were talking, dialed back Moore and Watkins a little bit. I think that you can play either of them. Like there's no guarantee that they even get on the field. Jordan Watkins, though, like the last 3 games that Pearsall was out, 14%, 21%, 5% route participation. Moore was at 16, 14, and 23. So yeah, like but then like neither of them have been involved at all.
Right.
Watkins, I don't think has stepped on the field since Pearsall came back. Moore has run routes in like 1 game since Pearsall came back. So my assumption is that you're probably getting something like, 15% Moore and then like 5 to 10% Watkins maybe. But you could get the 20% Watkins game at 800.
Yeah. It would be helpful if one of them is inactive, but probably not, I guess, where those are the 4 and 5 receivers. They're probably going to carry 5, I would think, but
yeah, I'm assuming they're active.
Yeah. Do you have a preference between Moore and Watkins?
So now that I adjusted, the answer is probably neither one, but like, I guess I would lean Moore just because he's $200. He's only $200 more expensive. I think he probably runs like 15% where Watkins runs like 5.
Okay.
But mostly just probably don't want either one. I think you also get Sky Moore punt return potential.
Yeah, well, that is true. All right. On the Colts, we have Josh Downs, 5,600, Michael Pittman, 7,400, Alec Pierce, 7,000. Downs projected for 7% flex ownership, none at captain. I'm getting to 47% flex, 7% captain of Josh Downs. So he's looking like a big stand in the Sims. I thought that this was a kind of a slot funnel, but maybe if we look at the full season, the Niners have been, no, it's the Colts. Oh yeah, both are slot funnels actually on the full season. Second best matchup for slot receivers on the season. Not as much recently, but do you still pretty good? How much interest do you have in Josh Downs?
I mean, if he's going to be 7% owned, then a ton.
Yeah.
Like right now, 7% flex ownership, 0 captain ownership, 25% chance of being optimal at flex, 3% at captain. I have 49 at flex, 10 at captain. But again, I think that ownership just changes. But I do, the Colts are interesting. Kind of talked about it when we were talking about Phillip Rivers. But when you look at what Colts pass catchers do, even aside from Phillip Rivers, you have sub 10-yard ADOTs for Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and Tyler Warren, and then you have Alec Pierce, running downfield. I think, like, obviously everybody's hurt by Phillip Rivers. I think Alec Pierce, on average, is just, like, completely nuked by Phillip Rivers, and you actually saw it last week, too. Like, if you look at the targets per route run for the Colts last week, it's actually, like, exactly what you would have expected going in terms of the direction, like, not talking about, 0.83 targets per route run for Abdullah, but, like, Abdullah and Taylor had the 2 highest targets per route run. Then it was Tyler Warren. Then it was Josh Downs. Then it was Michael Pittman. And then Alec Pierce was at 0.04.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly what we'd expect. Like the short ADOT guys getting the most targets makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I think
directly, if you sort last week's TPRR and you sort the season-long ADOT for Colts receivers, it's directly inverse, other than maybe Abdullah and Taylor. I don't know who actually has the higher ADOT between them.
Yeah.
But, like, they're both 0.
That is funny that it works out exactly as you'd expect. And yeah, Josh Downs, I mean, 5 targets last week is pretty good for Josh Downs. He ran 82.1% of the routes too. I did not even notice that he ran so many routes last week, which he's usually like a 66% kind of guy, I think. Do you think is this just a Phillip Rivers effect? Just like we're going to run these plays where the short ADOT guys are out there more using a slot receiver?
That was my assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. That is funny. So he's not only getting targeted more, but also just like they're planning for, they're scheming for the short ADOT stuff. That's interesting. So yeah, Josh Downs looking really good at low ownership. Also 7% ownership is really low. So that's also obviously a factor. The price tag is nice. Then you've got Pittman is 7,400 projected for 11% flex, 1% captain ownership. I'm getting to 22% flex, 1% captain. Again, like you said, kind of shorter ADOT for Pittman. He was targeted 5 times on 93% route participation last week. How much interest do you have in Michael Pittman in DFS?
Yeah, I'm getting over the field right now. I have less than Downs because he is $2,000 more expensive, but I have 27%, 20% chance of being optimal. Like I think he probably ends up being 20% owned, and I play around 20%. But with the ownership projection we have right now, I'm getting over the field. He came out of the sim with a projection of 9.4, which would be perfect for me and extremely stressful, but also I would take it. But yeah, I mean, he's another one. Like if ownership actually ends up around 20%, I think that's like where he should be. But if it's actually going to be 11, then yeah, I'll play him closer to 30.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Or you could just hedge by playing a ton of Michael Pittman. Have you thought about doing that?
I've thought about it from the betting angle, but the problem is like the score is so low. Like, I mean, outside of the problem that like you can only get so much money down on props, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like 9.4. Okay, like I can easily bet Pittman to score a touchdown and he beats me without scoring a touchdown. I can bet him to go over 50 yards or whatever and he can score a touchdown and get 20 yards. Like there's no clear like betting angle to profiting on Michael Pittman.
I should do it though, for sure, right? Like I should try to find a way. I mean,
Probably.
I can't sports bet here, but like it's a pretty big EV difference for me, and it's 26. So like if he doesn't score a touchdown, then I'm probably winning. I mean, he could get 100 yards on 10 receptions, but I should probably figure out a way to try to hedge my fade
like
of
I should have.
26.
Siege pointed it out to me. It didn't even cross my mind. Last week when I was sweating Waller over like 18 or whatever, and he had like half a point in the first half, I should have bet like 2+ touchdowns in the second half or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things, like in hindsight, like obviously you should have done that, but like,
but I mean, like it was the only way I was going to lose. It just didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. It's just like those are the kind of things, like it's so unlikely that it often won't cross your mind. Alec Pierce, like you said, he's 7,000 projected for 11% ownership. I'm getting to 0. So you're just assuming that Alec Pierce is completely nuked. He ran 86% of the routes last week.
Yeah, he'll run routes. I just don't know how he's getting the ball. He doesn't run the routes that Phillip Rivers throws. Like I mean, I guess like there could still be a broken play or something. Like I assume if Alec Pierce's defender falls down, Phillip Rivers can manage to throw the ball 12 yards and let Alec Pierce run to the end zone.
Again,
but
the ageism.
Like, I don't think we're getting the 30-yard downfield jump ball to Alec Pierce that he kind of lives off of. His ADOT for the season is like 20. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think it's like 20 yards or something.
I can still throw 12 yards at him, and I've never been a good quarterback.
With an NFL ball?
I assume so. I guess it's the same size as like a high school football, is it not?
No.
Am I wrong? It's not. Oh, interesting. No. I guess I don't have a lot of experience trying to throw an NFL ball.
I was like, can you grip an NFL football? Would be my first question.
I guess I think I can. I have pretty big hands, or like reasonably big hands. But Phillip Rivers clearly has big enough hands and like a better arm. To be clear, he has a much stronger arm than I do. I assume he can still throw the ball 40 yards.
I would guess he can still throw it like 40.
Yeah. So like that could like a broken play doesn't have to be 12 yards down the field. It can be 30 yards down the field. There's a broken play. He can throw it to Alec Pierce. It's like that's not what they're trying to do with Phillip Rivers, but my guess is that he can still throw it that far.
Yeah, and to that point, like I mean, Pierce doesn't project for 0, but like when I like adjusting target market share for Phillip Rivers, Alec Pierce of the main receivers is the one that you clearly just go like you're bumping up everybody else basically on a per route basis. You're keeping Pittman essentially neutral. You're lowering his yards per reception. You're lowering everybody's yards per reception, but you're basically keeping Pittman neutral. You're bumping the running backs, Warren and Downs, and it's all coming from Alec Pierce.
Yeah. It's I can see why you wouldn't want to play a lot of Alec Pierce. I don't want to play a lot of Alec Pierce. I don't think I want 0 at 11%, just, because as you said, like he's running the routes and like there can be broken plays and he's still capable of, I don't know.
So like with the way the ownership is right now, I think I would want 0 because essentially right now you have 7% going to Downs, you have 11% to Pittman, you have 11% to Pierce. So you have the field basically saying, oh yeah, there's no difference between these receivers. Yeah. I think there's a very big difference between Pierce and the other two. And I want to just be getting money on the other two. But what I think probably happens by lock is Pierce stays at like 11%. Downs ends up at like 20 to 25. Pittman ends up at like 20. And you're taking some away from like the Niners receivers. And then it's like, okay, well, yeah, if I'm playing a bunch of lineups, I'll mix in, 10% Alec Pierce or something like that. Looks like he's coming out of the sim optimal like 5% of the time. So even, then maybe I play 5% instead of 10. But if you tell me that Pierce is getting the same ownership as the two receivers that I think are way better with Phillip Rivers than he is, then yeah, I just want to get my money on the other two receivers.
Yeah, I actually think that's a fair point. Just like make the bet on the likelier case if they're all getting the same ownership. We'll have to pay. He is. I'm looking at one other source right now where Pierce is the only one in single digit ownership. The others are getting a little bit higher, so it's a bigger difference there than here, but still not a huge difference.
Yeah, like it's still, obviously there is some chance that like Pierce has a good game or that there's a broken play or whatever. It's no different than anything else. You're just talking about the probability of him having a good game versus the ownership. And you could disagree with the analysis and say like, oh, I don't think Pierce is any more hurt by Rivers than the other guys, in which case you should play him more than I'm going to. But the way I view it is like he is likely to take the biggest hit from playing with Phillip Rivers. So unless the field is going to adjust correctly, I'm probably going to just play his teammates more.
Yeah. I got the question in chat. Who plays the Keenan Allen role? Josh Downs. I would say Josh Downs. 78% from the slot for Downs. I don't remember exactly if Keenan Allen was always playing largely from the slot, but I think it was always kind of more underneath stuff. He was playing with Mike Williams, who was doing the I guess we would say the Alec Pierce role, like would like the downfield. Yeah.
Did he overlap with Malcolm Floyd, Vincent Jackson?
I actually don't know. Good question. All right, and then Laquan Treadwell 200. Does he return kicks? Project for 1% flex. I'm getting to 2% of Laquan Treadwell. Are you playing any Laquan Treadwell?
I have 2%.
Okay. Has he been running routes? He did not run any routes last week.
Yeah, I get him. He has like 5% route participation.
Okay, that seems reasonable.
Just the general placeholder wide receiver 4.
Yep.
Basically, what Anthony Gould, less than Anthony Gould was doing, or about the same as he was doing.
Okay. Tight end George Kittle 8,400 projected for 46% flex, 10% cap and ownership. I'm well into the field at flex at 29%, slightly over the field at 15% captain George Kittle. You getting something similar?
Probably. 29 at flex, 16 at captain. So that puts me under at flex, over at captain though. So we have him 35% to be optimal at flex, which with him being projected for 46% is a little bit lower. But we also have him 15 at captain, where he's only 10% owned. Now that is something that maybe changes a little bit once, because again, everything impacts everything else. Like once that projection is rerun and it's lower on like Sky Moore and Jordan Watkins, like those punt pieces, then maybe Kittle's optimal rate at captain comes down a little bit because it's harder to fill out those lineups. Right. But I do actually, at least right now, like Kittle relative to the field a little bit more at captain than I do at flex.
Yep, and that's exactly what I'm getting. He does have the most targets on the team, 24 over the past 3 weeks. I would assume he also benefits somewhat from Pearsall being out. Kittle has always been like better with, when Deebo Samuel was out or Brandon Ayuk was out, he always like benefited from top receivers being out. So I think Kittle should benefit from Pearsall being out. Also, in terms of the matchup for receivers, let's see. Or for tight ends, it is middle of the pack for San Francisco for George Kittle, slightly below neutral in terms of schedule adjusted over the past 5 weeks. It is a better matchup, approximately neutral for Tyler Warren. Warren is 6,600 projected for 31-8. I'm getting to 26-1. As you mentioned, like you would expect him to be targeted a fair amount with Phillip Rivers. We saw that last week, led the team with 6 targets on 86% route participation. How much are you liking Tyler Warren today?
Pretty close to the field at flex, at least 30% chance of being optimal, 31% ownership. I have 29%. I'm a little bit under at captain right now. That again, just could be a function of having a slight over projection on the really cheap guys. But 8% captain ownership, 5.5% chance of being optimal at captain, probably comes up to like 6.5. So I do like Warren here. I think he looks good. Again, he had the most targets on a per route basis other than the running backs last week. I fully expect that to continue. 5.5 ADOT for the season for Warren, fits very much, very, very nicely into what Rivers wants to do. Again, you've kind of had the Niners allowing a lot of underneath stuff this year in general. So I do like Warren a lot.
Yeah, Warren looks like a fairly strong play. Nice price tag, all that. I'm surprised I only got to 1% of captain. I guess that's the one part that surprises me a bit, but I guess we're just not expecting them to score much. Like you can't PPR your way to 25, and he's competing with JT and Christian McCaffrey and stuff. So that makes sense. Luke Farrell, Mo Alley Cox, Jake Tonjes, Drew Ogletree. I guess I am getting to 7% Luke Farrell at 1,600. He's the only one I'm getting to in any kind of real meaningful way. Do you have any backup tight end takes?
Yeah, 5% Farrell, like 1% of the Colts guys. The Colts, Alley Cox and Ogletree, Alley Cox in particular, did lose a little bit last week to Josh Downs. have it projected pretty similarly this week. On the other side for the Niners, I do think that you could potentially get a little bit more route participation from Farrell / Tongas. If you go back to the 4 weeks where Kittle was in and Pearsall was out, 21, 3, 17, and 21% route participation from Farrell. Tongas was at 7, 11, 3, and 5. So, I think it's likely that Farrell gets a little bit of an uptick. Since Pearsall came back, he's been at 7, 6, 6, and then last week got up to 11. So I think there's a pretty good chance that you're back to, like 20-ish% for Farrell.
Yeah. I am checking for you, Steven. I don't think. Okay.
So the problem is that they didn't run many routes. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, and Tyler Warren led the team with 10 total routes run in the second half last week.
Okay.
They were each targeted once. Targets per route run, Abdullah was targeted on 3 out of 4 routes. Taylor was targeted on 2 out of 7. Downs on 2 out of 9. And then the other 3 on 1 out of 10. There's not really anything there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's just like, I think 27 total throws for the game. It'd be pretty unlikely that you have like a large enough sample size to see anything meaningful. Like maybe if something happened weird where it was like, oh, Michael Pittman got 5 targets in the fourth quarter, I would read something into that. But it was, I thought it was a long shot. But yeah, sorry. Nothing there for you, Steven. All right. Defenses and kickers. People are wanting to pick on Phillip Rivers. Are we playing the Niners defense? Let's see.
So this is a spot that I think is you can kind of create your own narrative on this one.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you can play the Colts don't move the ball. Phillip Rivers is an old statue, blah, blah, blah narrative. And, the Niners, I would say, do probably have a little bit different distribution than like your average defense, where there's just a greater chance that Phillip Rivers just completely shits the bed than that Brock Purdy does, in terms of like Purdy will throw interceptions downfield, but like there's a better chance that Phillip Rivers just looks like a guy that can't play quarterback than Brock Purdy. But the flip side here, where I'm not actually convinced that it's like a great defensive matchup or better than usual outside of, maybe points allowed, but even that they have like a 20-21 team total, is like, yeah, Phillip Rivers is a statue, but we've talked the whole show about the guy who's going to throw the ball 4 yards at a time.
Right.
He's getting it out of his hand. He took 1 sack last week. He's going to get the ball out of his hand. And then at the same time, like the one thing Phillip Rivers has going for him still is he knows how to play quarterback and run the offense. He's probably not panic chucking the ball into triple coverage and just gifting you interceptions. So like from a real life defense standpoint, like, yeah, it's a pretty good spot for the Niners because I doubt the Colts score tons and tons of points. But from like a getting sacks and interception standpoint, on average, I'm not really sure it's a good spot at all.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like, and they're just like, on top of like, he's not making JJ McCarthy mistakes, he's also just not throwing the ball that much. And like typically you like quarterbacks against or you like defenses against quarterbacks who are going to be throwing a lot, and that's not our expectation for the Colts. You get a veteran who's just, like you said, not taking a ton of sacks, not really throwing a lot of throwing into coverage much. Yeah, I think you're right that it's like sneakily not a particularly great spot. Like it's fine. Like
I think that it's like a weird distribution because you do have that like higher than normal percentage where like they get behind, they're unable to move the ball, and then Phillip Rivers has to start forcing the ball down the field and it gets really ugly. Like you do have that chance, or he has to drop back more and he just starts he has to drop back and get the ball down the field, and like now it's just like sack central. But assuming the game goes somewhat according to plan, like I don't think he turns it over that much. I don't think he gets sacked that often. Whereas on the other side, like, yeah, the Niners are clearly the better offense. Brock Purdy, when he throws the ball more than 20 yards down the field, like he's an interception machine. So there is, kind of that argument of like, and especially, so it's really just another spot where I want to see what the field does, because I think these defenses are very, very close in terms of projection. And like I would agree that the top end is probably higher for the Niners. Yeah. Just because of, again, the just chances of it being really ugly are higher for Rivers. But like right now, there's only 8% projected ownership coming into $3,400 Indianapolis compared to 19% for $4,800 Niners. I want more of the Colts if those numbers hold.
Yeah, and that's what the Sims are giving me. I think I agree with you. I think like the more we talk about it, the more I think that the Niners are not actually that great of a play. Whereas the Colts, you also get the like you need to play somebody from the Colts angle, where it's
Right.
like it's pretty likely you can play a 5-1 Niners onslaught with just the Colts defense being the only thing you need from the Colts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and obviously, like, that's a weird construction, but,
Yeah.
yeah, they could just score 5 points or something. And also the Niners this year have like their defense has like a 3% sack rate. This is a team that does not get pressure on the quarterback, does not get sacks, and then you also have the Phillip Rivers is probably not holding the ball part.
Yeah, I mean they're all both defenses actually at this point are very banged up. Also,
Yeah.
like the Niners defense has been hurt all year. The Colts, like the downside there, and I agree with you. Like they look better at 3,400, 8% ownership. Like regardless of how bad the defense is, I think that's intriguing. I wish that they got like Sauce Gardner back or something where you could feel better about the actual players in the defense. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it's a spot that I think makes sense to play that. Eddie Pinheiro, 5,000 projected for 43% flex and 3% captain ownership. I'm surprised I'm still getting to 34% of flex, 1% captain. And then Blake Groupie, 4,600 projected for 40 and 2. I'm only getting to 8%. So we're taking big stands on the kickers here. Is this what you're doing and what you plan to do?
I mean, it's what I have right now. We have Pinheiro being optimal 37% of the time compared to 17 for Groupie.
Yeah.
I didn't actually I haven't taken a look at like what's actually going into the kicker projections, but actually I can just look on the screen. I mean, I'm fine with that. Like, you expect the Niners to score more points. Yeah, I mean, our projection on Pinheiro is a couple points higher than Groupie, and then that ownership projection was similar. You could argue that any kicker gap is big, but like also you're talking about an offense that moves the ball versus one that probably won't really.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that it like directionally makes sense to have a lot more Eddie Pinheiro than Blake Groupie just because we're expecting the Niners to score more. I don't know that I want quite this big of a split, but I think generally
again, it's ownership too. Like, they're projected for the same ownership. They're basically the same price, and one clearly projects better.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's just like, unlike the receivers, I feel like I don't feel as I would be less surprised, I guess, if it's just like, yeah, Blake Groupie just has 3 field goals in the first half.
Right.
And like that's just like we're not taking any chances on 4th and 2 with Phillip Rivers. We're just going to let him kick the field goal. Whereas like with the receivers, like it's tougher to see it play out where it's Alec Pierce beating the other 2 and they're all getting the same. So I don't know. It's I think this is like directionally where I'd like to be with the ownership though. Anything else?
No.
I want to remind people that I'll be live again before lock, and I'll be doing a giveaway. We got to 6,000 subscribers on the channel. Really appreciate you guys not getting me there when it was Adam doing the shows. That was my biggest worry, was that when Adam was doing solo shows, you were going to get us to 6,000 subscribers. So thank you for waiting until I got back. And then we got to over 6,000 subscribers this weekend. So I'll be doing a giveaway tonight. I will first do a giveaway. That'll be tonight. For YouTube audience members, I'll do a giveaway memberships to the channel, and then tomorrow I think I'll probably do a video if I have time tomorrow to do a hat giveaway to members. So it'll be people who win tonight, and then any other members to the Flannelverse YouTube will be eligible to win Flannelverse hats. I think I'll do a 10 hat giveaway tomorrow. So join me tonight if you want to participate in that. Adam, are you doing an NBA show today?
Probably, maybe. I had planned on it, but then I did a show with Davis earlier, and it kind of threw off my entire day.
Oh, what did you do a show with Davis on?
It's the Christmas NFL slate, just pre-recorded.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, so
maybe I'll
maybe
post
an NBA. All right, sounds good. Adam might do an NBA show later. I will definitely be doing an NFL show before lock tonight. Join me for that to potentially win membership to the YouTube and potentially a hat. All right, we are going to get out of here. Thank you for hanging out with us. Good luck tonight. Hopefully I will see you tonight.